Well, like you, I thought this was going to be one of the early things when they decided, okay, we're going to rejoin the World Health Organization, we're going to rejoin the Paris Climate Accords, we're going to renew the START treaty with Russia. I thought right in there among the top things was going to be, and we're back in the Iran nuclear deal. Everybody thought that's what was going to happen because Biden said it, and because it was going back to something that was working and that the international community supported. So it's been a real disappointment as this time has gone on, and Biden has been sending out very mixed messages through different members of his grouping in the national security staff that have gone from, yes, we're going to rejoin without preconditions, to, well, let's do it at the same time, to, well, the Iranians have to make the first move and they have to get back into compliance. So I think for those who think rationally about this, the United States was part of a deal. The other members that signed on to the Europeans, the Iranians, the Chinese, the Russians, they all went along with the deal. The U.S. pulled out, then the U.S. says, okay, we should go back into the deal. I mean, that's the way it should be. But it is very strange because I think they are well aware in the Biden administration that as each day goes by, it becomes harder and harder to go back into this deal because the forces against the deal in the US, in the Middle East, inside Iran itself are getting stronger and stronger, whereas the forces in favor of the deal are getting weaker and weaker.
Now, something like 140 members of Congress, of the House, signed some kind of letter, document calling for actually reopening the whole negotiation and including other stuff. And I assume other stuff means primarily ballistic missiles, which non-nuclear ballistic missiles, which Iran has a right to have as many non-nuclear ballistic missiles. Frankly, Iran has a right to nuclear weapons if it wants it. It's just not under this agreement. So they, assuming that agreement goes ahead, they won't do that. But this 140 or so members of the House, they're trying to scuttle the whole deal, really.
Well, not only did they say that the missiles should be part of it, they also said Iran's, quote, malign behavior in the region should be part of it, as well as the human rights issues internally in Iran. So the fact that they got 70 Democrats to go along with this is very disconcerting. And the main Democrat that helped organize it, a guy named Anthony Brown from Annapolis, Maryland, we just went and did a protest in front of his office, and we got a hold of him during a town hall, a virtual town hall, and he tried to backtrack, saying, well, you know, we really are supportive of the Biden administration in this, and maybe, yeah, we should lift some sanctions, but let's be realistic. Anybody who works with 70 Republicans who are known to be against the deal and who throws everything but the kitchen sink into a broader, more comprehensive deal is basically saying, forget this deal, because they know Iran would never agree to that at all.
Yeah, let's talk about the malign behavior, because if I understand it correctly, it means, number one, support for Hezbollah, which Iran has every bloody right to. Hezbollah is a legitimate organization in Lebanon, and it's actually part of the government, or at least it was last time I looked. And Iran has every right to have relations with Hezbollah. Like, where's the malign behavior? Like in Iraq, there's groups in Iraq that support Iran and vice versa, but it's a neighboring country, and the Iraqi government has good relations with Iran. Where's the malign behavior?
Well, they would certainly say those too, and they would say that Iranian-backed militias are attacking U.S. personnel and U.S. contractors in Iraq. But one must say, didn't the Iraqis ask the U.S. to leave? And why is the U.S. there to begin with? And if you really want to protect the U.S. personnel, how about getting them out of there? The other place that the signers of this letter would say there's malign behavior is in Yemen. And certainly there we can say that it was the Saudis who first were the outsiders who got involved in an internal dispute inside Yemen. And it was only later that the Iranians got involved in helping the Houthis. They would also point to Syria, but there you could say it's the government in power, whether you like it or not. Assad, who invited the Iranians in. So it really is only to say that Iran is not on the same side as the United States in these places, and that's what makes it malign behavior. And in addition to these members of the House who we talked about, there is a letter that's going to be coming out very soon from the hawkish of all hawks, Lindsey Graham, the Republican in the Senate, who has never seen a war he didn't like, and Bob Menendez, who's the Democrat who is now the head of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. And they are getting probably almost all the Republicans and then peeling off a couple of Democrats as well. So it is to say that there is, the more time that goes by, the more these forces against the deal are building. And guess who is behind these letters? It might not come as a surprise to you, Paul, that it is the pro-Israel lobby in the United States, AIPAC, that is behind this. And they never wanted the deal. They didn't want it the last time around under Obama. And they have a lot of time, and they have a lot of members who have been bombarding their congresspeople to say, sign these letters, show your opposition to this deal. And that's why I think the Biden administration is really blowing it by taking so long and increasing the political price they will have to pay if indeed they do then go ahead and rejoin the deal.
What this is obviously really about is they don't want to accept that Iran is a regional power. They don't, I mean, the United States doesn't like regional powers anywhere, because if you want to be the global hegemon, it means you got to be the hegemon in every region. But Biden, I remember, this has stuck with me over the years. In 2008, during the election, he's debating, I guess, who was it? Would it have been Palin in 2008, I guess? Anyway, but Biden says if you didn't want Iran to be a regional power, you shouldn't have invaded Iraq, which is, it was a rational statement. He says you have to accept Iran as a regional power. That's the reality after the Iraq War. Frankly, it was a regional power before the Iraq War, but not at the level after the Iraq War. So Biden understood the situation. But we'll see if he asserts that rationality. But just in terms of who else in the Senate is behind this, Chuck Schumer was always against this deal. Is his hand here somewhere?
Well, it's a funny situation now with Chuck Schumer. There's nothing like the threat of an opponent coming from the left, like the brilliant AOC from the Squad, and rumors being out there that perhaps she would challenge him, that has suddenly turned Chuck Schumer into a flaming radical. And so he hasn't come out in opposition to the deal now. I think he is sort of under control because he doesn't want to be seen as somebody who is now negotiating with the likes of Lindsey Graham. So that's a good thing.
Well, also as majority leader, he can't come out against what at least was an important plank of Biden's foreign policy.
Well, that's right. And, you know, the way that we've been talking about this, we've been saying, how can any Democrat come out and sabotage what the Biden administration wants to do? Although as all this time goes by, you have to question, is this indeed what the Biden administration wants to do?
Yeah, I mean, my guess is it is what he wants to do, but how much political capital is he willing to spend to do it? He's got the Saudis against him, the Israelis against him. Now he's got people in his own party. I must say, when I've talked to Larry Wilkerson about this, when Obama was pushing this deal through, Wilkerson was helping lobby on the Hill in favor of the deal. And he says Biden really fought for this deal, that in a lot of people's eyes, they associated the deal with Biden as well, not just Obama. So he does have some personal political credibility on the line here.
Yeah, but then they should know. I mean, just as you brought up the issue about Iran as a regional power, I think there's a myth inside the United States that Iran is a country that's governed by the Ayatollahs and that there is no real play in terms of politics. And yet, that is so far from the truth. And with elections coming up in the electoral season for a new president just around the corner, this is a time when Iranian politics are going to be right in the forefront of this, with Rouhani and the reformists having been pilloried because they have gotten nothing from all of this talk with the West, while the sanctions have been devastating the economy. And so it's much more likely that a more hardliner will come into power, and it'll be harder for the Biden administration to get something from them. So I think not recognizing the importance of speed has been a big problem, and it will only become harder and harder as the electoral season comes into full force within Iran.
And let me just to conclude this first of your list of 10. I think it's important to say that these people who are kind of being billed against the nuclear deal, it actually should be framed differently. These are people who are for economic warfare against Iran, because the concept of not accepting Iran as a regional power, what that really means is they want economic warfare to weaken Iran, and they don't want that economic warfare to stop. That's what this is really about.
Yes, and when we didn't, we've kind of implied that there's a lot of division within the Biden administration around this, but we were extremely happy when Biden appointed the envoy for Iran as Rob Malley, somebody who is a real diplomat. But then the deputy envoy is somebody who has been shown in talks that he's given, and there's YouTubes of this, gloating about how the sanctions have really socked it to the Iranian people and led to the increase in unemployment, and how successful these sanctions have been. And that makes you wonder, why is Biden bringing in people who have differences in the way they approach Iran right into the center of his policymaking?